Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Gregory. Thank you for inviting me here.
Thank you so much for being here. We are going to have a fun time today. That was our only rule for today's episode, is to have some fun.
Yeah.
And you told me some interesting things as we were getting started. You told me that you've led a feisty life of protecting and nurturing what you know to be true for you. I would love to use this as a jumping off point and ask, what do you know to be true to you?
Oh, great question. At my essence, it's innocence. It's having this clarity that we have an innate nature of kindness, of genuine presence in all of us. And it's the knowing that that's the clearest path. And if that's my knowing, then how far off course would I be willing to let myself go to comply to what is being projected upon me or what I see others doing to succeed? And I have gone on those other paths. And then as my own soul began to diminish and atrophy, I got feisty multiple times and said, you know what? The first contract I signed was with my own soul. And so there's an innocence to that word feisty, and I really love it.
Yeah, can you tell us a bit more about feisty? Because you were saying before we hit record that sometimes you need to get a little angry. You need to throw a little tantrum.
Yeah, and being really deliberate. And not so much with people, but with myself. And to say, if I am so uncomfortable, then what is it within me that is creating the discomfort? What path have I gone down? What languaging have I used? What invitation did I make that brought me into this discomfort? So one of the things I love is taking full accountability. Mm-hmm. Because in that there's full power and responsibility and agility and exploration. So first, it's being feisty with myself. And for whatever reason, I have just been really enamored and enchanted my whole life with nature, and with a capital N. That within nature and the infinite nature, there are answers. But it's almost like we won't be interrupted with guidance until we state a clear request. And so that's the feist. There's no real anger in it, but there is some unrest, and there is frustration, and there is a point where I'm doing the best I can. Y'all, I need you to chime in. And so in meditation, in contemplation, in journaling, write it out, speak it out, express it out. And I do that in my creativity. So therein lies the feist. But I'd like to say that I don't really have an activist way about me. I'm more of an advocate for love. And if I'm not in that advocacy, then there's something that needs to be aligned and trued up with me.
I love that so much. Therein lies the feist, an advocate for love. You are already dropping some wisdom bombs on the audience, and I want to go for a moment to a bit about who you are and what you do so people can have some frame of reference. You're a graphic designer, an artist, a sketch artist, a sand artist, creator of Tidbits of Love. You've done so many of these incredibly unique and creative things. Can you tell us a bit about your favorite aspects?
Yeah, well, the favorite aspect would be the opportunity to intuit. What's the highest source that I can tap into in synergy with my client or with the environment or what's being called to be produced through me? So it's really going above the mind, the mental, to tap into that which has never been created. And then using my mental faculties and my skills, because I do love technology as a graphic designer, and I love project management and the communication. Okay, but that's that's like on the horizontal plane, I call it. I love going vertical. And you know when you get that inspiration that just has a fresh essence?
Yes.
And then you got to pull it off. And they always pull you up higher than what's comfortable. And so it's that fresh stretch. So I love that. And I love to be an advocate for a greater truth. And I love being the beginner's mind for people. It's always been in my innate nature to say, excuse me, I just read through this. I'm confused. And if I'm your audience, we got to slow this down. Or how can I make it simple through drawing a picture? What do you think about illustrating this sequence of directions or illustrating your company values? And how does that evoke participation? And my illustration style is very playful and inviting and lighthearted. I always like to say that it looks like the wind is blowing, or it's about to get up and walk away. So that delights me. So finding the delight, the spark, the beginner's mind, and that fresh stretch. Mm-hmm.
That was one of the things I loved most as I was doing my homework on your art, is the sketch artistry, where you are taking company values or mission statement, or there was one about communication and kindness.
Yeah.
And the word you used is perfect, playful illustrations of what these words mean. And I feel like when you mix words with playful illustrations or any sort of illustration, it's 1 + 1 = 5. You get this extra essence that comes out.
Thank you. And as you're speaking, I'm thinking it's like a children's book. It sparks the child in all of us,
Yes.
And something that was gifted to me in my public speaking, we met at Toastmasters.
We did.
And one of our fellow Toastmasters, I was really struggling with a keynote speech that I was going to present. I was upside down and backwards and all turned inside out. And he said, why didn't you just begin with once upon a time? And the storyteller in me woke up and it flowed. So what you say is so genuine, and I think what we're all asking for is, I want to comply. I want to participate. I want to jump in. But can you bring me in gracefully, innocently? I want to understand the terms so I can agree. Yeah.
You said earlier that you're willing to be the one who raises their hand and says, I don't know, I'm confused. And again, coming back to this childlike nature that you sent me in your intro, how have you managed to keep that inner child alive throughout the years, throughout the hardships, some of which we'll talk about in a little bit?
The word that's coming in is just simplicity. Living a simple life. I was in the 5-bedroom house, BMW trajectory. And I chose to get feisty and graciously bowed out with 2 little kids for the love of my soul, and chose a life of simplicity. I had to unravel from all those beliefs, though, and that identity. It's not a quick, it's painful. And that's where the tools come in, and I've acquired so many over the years. And thank goodness for those who have guided me with wisdom, my teachers, and some known and some read, many listened to, what you're doing here. And so simplicity and staying close to nature, movement in nature, following a burn inside me that feels like the origin of my being, which is a creative spark. And how am I nurturing it holistically through meditation, through movement, expressing it, sharing it. Sharing it is a really big component. If I can purify a message down to a product or an illustration or a talk or guidance, down to the innocence that someone can understand it almost instantly, then I have achieved my goal. So why not just live my life that way?
Interesting. Living your life in the same way that you express ideas. Simple, playful.
Yeah, less personalities to shift through. I've been saying lately that I feel like my life is on a remote control. I was up in Yosemite on a commission, doing a commission piece of art of a wonderful retreat center up there, and the Curiosity Retreat Center. And I was in Yosemite Park, and I was coming back, and I get a call from the nurse at my parents' retirement community. Thankfully, my dad survived a heart attack. But at any moment, we're called to be in service, to respond, to be a first responder to ourselves and others. So if we're in basically one lane of self, then it's just throwing your gear in the car and getting on the road. So back to simplicity. Designing a life of simplicity, but also living every day in that simplicity for that quick agility. Because it's in that seamlessness that you can respond with clarity and consciousness to the paramedic on the other end of the line. And that contributes energetically, not only to their service of my father, but to my system and to my father's. It's just a ripple. Yeah.
I want to ask about the BMW and the 5-bedroom house. But before we do, while we're on this topic of simple ideas, can you tell us a little bit about tidbits of love, what they are, and how you're sharing them with the world?
Yeah, I'd love to. So I was a art major in college, and at a very young age, I was the artist. I don't know who else out there is got labeled early on. And it was almost like, okay, you're done. You're the artist. You're good. I love science. I think engineering would be cool. Oh no, you're in the artist line. And so I went to school to be an artist. And in that, and most people will understand that there's a certain level of compliance and meeting requirements of an assignment and answering to those who are creating the assignments. And in that sweet innocence of me that just loved to draw, left thinking it's not worth it. It hurts too much to revise according to an external, to achieve a external. It was just too external. Fortunately, though, I loved graphic design, and this was pre-computers. But I loved the tools. Because I loved woodworking. And so I was able to nerd out in that way and become a graphic designer, and I started a job and built a career, and then moved to San Diego, and I was married at the time, and I was working for USD and Sharp Healthcare and Children's Hospital. And for me, it had to be heart-centered, because that's where the intuition comes from. That's where the creativity comes from. Although I did have a really cool gig with Hewlett-Packard, but that was all illustrations too. So in the midst of all the graphic design, there was a burn inside me that said, but you've got this gift of drawing and you're not using it. And it was like a red hot coal. I'm not kidding.
Mm-hmm.
And I got feisty.
Yes.
You're reminding me, if I've got this, how do you want me to use it? Y'all. And not soon after, I walked into a coffee shop and I recognized a woman from my past, and she was doing this. And it flooded back into me. Sketching. Sketching is not creating art. Sketching is just a sketch. You just get it down and you turn the page. If someone sees it, whatever. It's not for them. It's capturing. You're in it. You're communing. You're connecting. That person's going to get up in 30 seconds. Quick, get the spine, get the hip. Oh, bye-bye. And I started sketching, and I joined a global community of people called, it's called Sketchbook School. And it's SKOOL. And as I shared my sketches with Sketchbook School, the kindness and thoughtfulness that came rolling back in was nothing like the university. And an elementary school friend saw my sketches on Facebook, and she challenged me 7 sketches for a week to bring some positivity to Facebook. Now, this is 10 years ago. And so I'm thinking simplicity. I'm going to draw things that just drop in out of my head, and they're going to be tiny. So I drew a sun, a wave, a moon, a heart, a butterfly, and a couple more. I don't know where I'm at. And when I shared them with that global community of sketchbook artists, one gal said, they bring me joy. And it was like an incantation, because all of a sudden, I got this streak of light that came in and said, put joy in a box so that people can give joy to each other, because they don't know how. And you will have done a really good thing with this gift. As a graphic designer, packaging designer, they chose the right gal. It all lined up, except I was really in my stuff. You probably know, writing your own content, designing your own website. By then, I was designing websites. You would think it would just be snip, snap, snout. Knock it all out.
It would be without the resistance that comes when we are tasked with creating something important.
Yeah. Yeah, so up came the resistance, and I called in the reinforcements, and I had people come, and just good people, I needed to swear a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I needed to pace and talk, and so tidbits of love were born. And what they are little cards that fit into the palm of your hand. One side has sweet artwork. On the other side, it'll say, be brave, believe in you. Trust in the light that you are. You being you is beautiful. And they're being shared all over the world. They are all over the world. And here locally in Encinitas, there's a fence at Swami's in front of a house, a rickety picket fence, and I slip them in there. That's my community fence, and you can walk by and take them, and I'll put more back. But they're for sharing, and they're being sold in gift shops locally and across the United States. But I wanted to keep it super accessible, so they're small, 40 in a box, ridiculously abundant, for not very much money.
And they're simple. The simplicity seems to be a theme, and they're so cool. We'll put a link in the show notes for Etsy. Is that the best place for people to go?
Actually, my website, tidbitsoflove.com. Yeah.
Perfect. And you so graciously gifted me 2 boxes that I'm already thinking about who in my life those are going to. So the love will be spread.
I know it will. And that's the thing, they're autonomous. That's another theme, is that no one has to come back to me. Once you have the gift, it's authentic and unique to you, and then the next person you share it with. And each tidbit will speak to people in unique ways. So many times I'll give someone a butterfly, and then they'll proudly lift up their sleeve with a butterfly tattoo. So there's so many coincidences around them, or they'll put it to their heart and tear because they needed to hear this right now. But it's theirs, and they take it with them, and I just disappear. I love that part.
So cool. While we're on the topic of art, I want to ask you, what do creative proposals, a rake, and sand have in common?
Oh, proposals, as in that kind of proposal.
That kind of a
proposal. I was
proposal.
like, oh my God, I'm not going to have to draft a business proposal, am I? No, it's a wedding proposal. Oh my gosh. I've done a couple of them. These wonderful men find me. They search on Instagram, sand art, and then they look at my work and they call me up on the phone and say, my girlfriend loves the beach. We're always in Solana. That's our beach. That's where we take our dog. Or we're driving down from Central California. So 2 of them, 3 of them I have done. The words are chosen by the boyfriend. One was, marry me Han, H-A-N. Another was, marry me Sandy. And
Pun intended?
Yeah, he thought perfect, right? But just to bring your viewers into context here, I have gone from little tidbits of love. Sorry I left you out there for a while. Little tidbits of love to taking a rake and creating massive sand art. Very organic, mandala-esque with words. And I've got to say, the only reason I know about sand art is because a gal named Nadia Horvath found tidbits of love in a shop. And the gal at the shop says, you need to meet Sharon Belknap. Because she knew Nadia. And so Nadia reached out to me. We met for coffee. And she said, why don't you come do this thing with me at the beach that I do with my clients? She works with people in rehab. And this was 6 years ago. And she said, we do this little thing, but I would love to see what you would do. I get out there and, man, I am all over that beach. And she said, now choose a word. Choose a word that you really want to dig into the sand. And I was going through a really difficult time with a client. I had signed a contract and they were overusing me. And I felt helpless. And I said, like, what kind of word? To Nadia. And she said, a virtue. And I kind of went deer in the headlights. I go, virtue? And she brought out a list, like a cheat sheet for me. And I'm reading down, and the one word that I knew the least, I knew was the one I needed to put in the sand. And it was dignity. I wasn't being treated with dignity. I was having to fight for my own dignity. And so I drug that in the sand, and I was so feisty. And I love that piece. And it was like a week later that I got out of that. I got out of that contract. Because I had felt that intensity, that coming home to my own dignity. And so I just started doing sand art on the beach, just really as a love for community, because I do them below the bridge in Cardiff or the steps at Solana. And people yell out, thank you. You know? And it's this total happening. You know, they watch it unfold, we engage. Then people start coming down on the sand and asking me, how do you do it? Here, take the rake. Oh, no. Hey, guess what? tide's coming in. It doesn't matter. Talk about in the moment. So now I'm posting on Instagram, and this is how I started to get asked to do the proposals and also celebrations of life and birthdays and halfway through cancer treatments and all kinds of great things.
And it's so cool. And I will also apologize that we kept the listeners in the dark for so long, but huge designs in the sand at the beach. Like you said, the tide is coming in, so it's a brief window. I was looking at one of the Instagram posts, and you said you had to redo the proposal message saying, "Will you marry me?"
7 times. And that was kind of like, game on.
Yeah.
Game on. I've got 7 minutes. Watch me.
So cool. And it's really almost full circle for me, because I think I saw some of your sand art before I met you.
Really?
And it popped into my mind when I was going through your Instagram, looking at all these. I was like, wait, I've seen this below the bridge at Cardiff before. And it's so cool that you can create on the tiny tidbit level and on the macro, enormous sand level that is there for a moment, gone the next. It makes me think of when I lived in Florence, Italy. There's artists who create the Mona Lisa perfectly in chalk on the street, and then it gets washed away the next day.
Because it is the creation. It is the creation. There is really nothing other than that. And the engagement with nature, with others. And then we walk away. Symbolism there.
I promised that we would go back to the BMW and the 5-bedroom house.
Okay.
The Dare to Dream podcast is all about living a life true to yourself, not the one that others expect of you, that you've been living for a while and you suddenly realize that the shoe doesn't fit anymore.
Right.
Take us back to that moment where you started to realize that you wanted something else for your life, and what happened next.
Honestly, it was when I was dating. But I was so ingrained and encultured into a way of being that I was not. I was carefree. I had this innocence, this simplicity. Intuition was my guide. But then there's this whole life thing. And so I chose a really good fill-in-the-blank guy. And he was great at it. I mean, A+ for that, really. And I was his A+. Because what he was lacking was what I was. But the part that was missing was the convergence. The values, the laughter, the connection, the silliness, the innocence, the innovation. But we both loved being autonomous too, so it met both our needs. And 2 beautiful kids came out of this, and moving through one house to the next house, the bigger, all the stuff, But all the stuff and the houses and the focus, our focuses just went apart, because mine were these 2 kids and tromping around in nature and laughing and creating. And his were authentically his, which was a lot of training, physical training, and a lot of work. Because those were 2 of the things that I fell in love with him. But they became a source of resentment and feeling so alone in this huge responsibility with these children and wanting more for my babies, you know? And I just remember at a cul-de-sac party when someone offered me a Swedish meatball. And I said, "This is not my life." And he looked at me. Oh, geez, I said it out loud. And it was a choice. I was either going to continue to comply. I was already 16 years in to what had been projected on me, how I had been shown through media and others a way to be, or was I going to honor my way of being? And my intuition is my being. Other people have really amazing skills, and I've been jealous most of my life that they're able to take their mind and put it into something that quantifies with beautiful money. And for a long time I was pissed. It's like, I got this. I can mix periwinkle blue and follow, I feel like Mary Poppins. Give me an umbrella and the wind. So I chose me. I chose me.
You chose you, and it segues perfectly into intuition. You've referenced y'all a couple of times.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit more about your intuition and how that has played a factor in your life. And is it something that can be cultivated, or is it you got it or you don't?
Oh, wow. You know, I can't answer that. I think it's something like, okay, so I knew I could draw. I mean, I drew, and people said, look, she can draw. Oh. Musicians, you know, people that just have natural talents. Can you cultivate those? Yes. With a burning desire. Intuition for me is the pause before the think. It's knowing that there's a spaciousness around us. It's inviting in, creating spaciousness. Inhaling into a synergy that exists. A synergy between the soul that you are, that you came here to be, and that which is. And we'll leave it at whatever your is. But what a fun dance to play. And there's whimsy in it. There's curiosity and creativity. So it's a discipline to bring in the pause. And to check in with your own authenticity or your feist. And it's a calibration. And if there's a freshness to it. Because we're all making this up. So why not come in with a little bit of improv? And take full responsibility. Did that answer the question?
It absolutely did, and it makes me think a lot about beliefs, about the soul, why we're here, a higher power. And without getting too much into it, I like to think that you should choose whatever belief feels right, that feels fun, that feels like it's going to add value to your life. Maybe you're wrong at the end, but at least you will have lived your life with this belief that's hopefully helpful and nourishing. And again, no one knows, so why not choose a belief that suits you? And it sounds like you have this great relationship with some higher power.
Yeah, I love how you say the fun component.
We need more
Yeah.
fun. We need more fun in
You lead with that.
nearly everything.
Yeah. And we won't know. And when we find out that we may have been off by 10 degrees, I think we'll laugh.
Yes. I certainly hope so.
Yeah, there was more on the table. Oh, dang.
Yeah. So, a couple of things. One, through your art, through knowing you,
Yes.
it seems like you've had some spiritual teachings and experiences. I would
Mhm.
love to hear a little bit about those.
Yes. Well, I was raised in Catholicism, but I was too feisty for it. It's not advisable to debate in the confessional.
It's frowned upon.
Well, no, you just get more Hail Marys. And I think they opened the door to see whose kid was that. And then I went into Christianity because there's good stuff. I mean, Christ, man. I mean, it's really a loving, authentic, beautiful way of being. And then as I was growing up and I had my children, I would pass by a park. I was a runner. And in the early fog mornings, I would pass by this park and there was a group doing Tai Chi. Oh my gosh. So one day I had the courage and I went up and I asked, may I study with you? And with very little English, he said, you can come back on Sunday mornings and I will teach you one-on-one. So I traded in Sunday service for Tai Chi in the park. And it taught me about that slowness and receptivity of an energy that is already here. I'm not thinking it. I'm not creating it. I'm not asking for it. It's here. And it's just my receptivity, my feeling of it, and me moving with it and shifting my weight and extending it. And that woke up a whole way of being in physiology. And at that time, my father's sister was a Reiki master teacher up in Campbell, California by San Jose. And I just knew, despite everything, I knew one day I would be like my Aunt Donna. And so I started studying with her. And flying up there, practicing, taking my lessons, coming back, practicing, finally moving up into master teacher level. And what that taught me was there was a really big chunk in my way of being, because as one who had my own business as a graphic designer, I have to step into authority to guide others where they just don't know. They're like, just you do it. All right, so there I'm in that authoritative position. Well, with Reiki, you're receptive, and it's only flowing through you to go exactly where it's needed. So I had to unravel my own mental construct again. Okay, now I'm solo in life on a timeline. So another identity to unravel. Oh, this isn't about me. There's no conversation. This is all about receptivity and sharing. But there's that common theme, simplicity and sharing of a vital life energy. It's the same thing that goes up the stem of a flower that sprouts, the petals and then the bud and then, that's vital life energy. So that's what I am committed to receiving, to then transmitting either right here in your presence or virtually, distant Reiki. And miracles have happened. Miracles have happened.
Okay, I've got to ask about the miracles.
I had a dear friend who I had done a Grand Canyon crossing with. My dad and I have done 4 rim-to-rim Grand Canyon crossings together. And that almost needs to insert, that helped me make the decision to follow my soul, because it was through those trainings that I learned what it is to be with a man who is fully present, committed to an objective, training, schedules, logistics, compassion, understanding. And so it was the contrast of getting to know my father later in life that showed me the contrast of what I had in my marriage. So not to make the man I was married to, the father of my children, wrong. It's just that I saw what was more right for me. And on one of those Grand Canyon crossings, there was a friend that came with us. The first one we did solo, but the last one on my dad's 75th birthday, he had already done 14. I only did 4. On his 75th birthday, she and I became friends on this crossing. Not long after, she reached out to me. Her son had become addicted to drugs, and he was on the street, and she didn't know where he was. And I was now practicing Reiki at the master level, and I said, come to my home. She couldn't breathe. She couldn't eat. She couldn't sleep. So while providing her with Reiki, I sent out a field of love to reach him. Just to reach him. To love him. No pre-existing request. Just to love him. In true form to my practice, I reached out to her the next day to see how she was doing. She didn't return my call, nor the next or the next. And then she called. And she said that night when she went home, her son came in the door and said, Mom, that thing you've always told me about that loves me, it came and got me. I need your help. So there is a field of love that is eager to participate in our lives, back to creating spaciousness, a void for it to fill in with us, around us, to merge with our soul purpose. And then energetically receiving that to send up to our beautiful mind, to bring our skills online so that it can move through and outward. We are vehicles of love. And the beauty of Reiki is that as I'm providing, I'm receiving. So it's realigning and attuning me to that higher frequency. Yeah.
You have so many different skills and talents, and this feels like an appropriate time to bring in this whole new facet of you that brings in the receiving of love, the transmitting of love. And I want to ask this graciously and carefully, but we're 2 days away from July 4th. What happened on July 4th, 2020?
Thank you. It's an honor to share this here. On July 4th, 2020, early in the morning, where there was still mist coming across the 5 freeway, just there by the racetrack, my son, Chris Thompson, was coming home between shifts. He was a firefighter, coming home on a motorcycle. Firefighter, medic, burning at both ends, because that's who he is. And it was orchestrated in that time for there to be an accident. and a drunk driver left his vehicle on the freeway in a position that Christopher couldn't see it. No lights were visible, and in the fog in the early morning, and Christopher was coming down that you'll know it if you're from the area. You come down into that low point, and that's when, as I feel and see it, his soul chose to return and ascend back into the infinite love. A tragedy, yes. A life lost, so loved by so many. I mean, you'd love him, Gregory. Amazing. Everybody did. It was at the peak of his career. He had worked so hard. He had gone into the Navy to become a Navy SEAL. And he was in the BUDS program in Coronado, and he got an injury to his rib. And when he went in to be treated, they saw what he was hoping they wouldn't. And that was his one eye had amblyopia, which means it strays in. Oh, he'd had surgery to correct it, but when he was under stress is when it was most obvious. And so with that, he was released from the BUDS program, came home at a critical time in his sister's life. And together they created a bond that just brought them together as kindred spirits. And to see him use all that talent and skill from the Navy training and then repurpose it so beautifully into the Fire Academy and be there as the academy leader and then get picked up by Valley Center, and he had just finished interviewing with Orange County, and it was just, you know. And what I understand now about grief, loss, is that every person is going to receive that so uniquely. It is such an intimate experience of the past, the projected future, the current relationship. But I can only speak for myself, and that as a mother of a first responder, and having him in the Navy going off to BUDS and being a Navy SEAL, I had already acclimated. And I've spoken to other mothers and wives of first responders, and it's like, you have to acclimate to the potential of this. So I just want to pause there to give myself a chance to breathe and have you ask another question, if I may.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing this with us.
Yeah.
And you were sharing something before we started recording about you had an experience the day before.
Yeah, I did. And this is such a personal thing that to me, it's evidence that we're all in this divine orchestration for each person's holistic evolution, should you choose, if you're even able to choose. I say that with such humility and such understanding. This isn't like something that all of a sudden you can just say, I will take this and I will rise. No, it falls on where you are and your soul's path. But for me, what occurred, it was about 10 in the morning. And this is how Christopher and I were. We didn't need many words. He lived with me longer than he wanted to. I don't know, y'all guys, okay, Mom, I'm here. I'm on my way out. You do your thing, I'll do mine. So we had this really beautiful, no talking kind of thing. But we had an intuitive connection. And I was in the kitchen, and he was had moved out, and he was a firefighter and medic. And I was thinking about him in this cute, funny way. And I looked at my phone, and the ringer wasn't on, but up pops his face. And of course it would. I went out on the patio to take his call. He was so excited to tell me that one of the firefighters had said, "Come over to my yard, man. I got way too many toys. Borrow whatever you want." He goes, "Mom, I'm at Denny's. I'm waiting for him to get off work. I'm going to get a bike." Now, I raised Christopher at the dirt bike track. And he and I had this thing. I'm like, game on. You want it? You go. I'd say to him, "I'm going to get up at 4 a.m., get up Mount Woodson, see the sunrise. Great, Mom. Have fun." We had no fear between each other. And so he called me with this great news, but I'll tell you what happened. On that word, motorcycle, this orb of light appeared before me. I'm on the phone with him, so it's this parallel universe. I didn't even have these words then. Opens, and as I look at this orb with my curious mind, my analytical mind, I'm brought into it and fully immersed into a field of love that is of the most pristine quintessence, vast and infinite, the real infinite. And as I'm inhaling this and being taken into it, I realize I have to tap out. I can't go any further. And just as I made that choice, that which was no thing and all things somehow communicated to me in this delightful forward gesture, "Use me. Use me. I go direct." It was playful. And then I felt what I now know is my son's soul move from my back and out through my heart and back into that love. It was Christopher, man. It was like, and my inner voice, with a voice of such ancient wisdom, like a reverberation of many motherhoods with the same man, said, "He's going." But it was a fullness, like you couldn't hope for anything greater for any human being to be going back into that. And I remember my energy just dropping back into my body. But it was this feminine love and a wholeness. Like, I'm here and you're there. This is good. Not knowing how these things work, but that whole experience happened, but I didn't retain it as Sharon in that moment because it left. I'm on the phone with Christopher. I'm talking to him. The waitress is saying, "More coffee? Ketchup, please." Oh, food's been plated. It's in front of him. I gotta wrap this up. We had a gorgeous conversation, some very distinctive topics that have come to play for another story. So the whole experience was completely taken from me. I had no recollection. I went about my day. It was July 3rd. I heard him on the phone with his sister later on, making plans to come over. You know, we're going to come over and do all kinds of cool things together on the 4th. And then the next morning, my daughter and granddaughter were living with me. They'd moved in even before COVID, and I want to say this is right at the height of COVID. And she took a call outside, which was really curious that she didn't say, "Hey, Mom, come be, with the little one." Ooh, I heard her go out. I went out But she came back in that door. When I took in her face, the entire premonition came flooding back into my body. And without a word from her, I said, Christopher, motorcycle, he's gone. I knew. And there began the greatest contrast of a human experience. The physical loss of such an amazing human being who was my son, the love of my daughter and my grandbaby and all his fire families, all his friends, my family, just ripples and ripples and ripples out. Anybody who's lost a loved one knows. How can it be so final? But then the resurgence of that love, and it's all orchestrated. If I knew the day before, then the drunk driver and the car and the motorcycle, what? And then isolation. Months and months of isolation. Because everyone has their own grieving process. And what place does that have when you want to honor people who have lost their love, feeling they've lost their life? So, isolation, deep, deep meditation. I'll take pause there.
You mentioned that at some point during today's episode, you wanted to gift a session of hypnotherapy, and how Christopher's ascension has played a large role in this next chapter in your life.
Thank you. That was a lovely segue. So just as I've shared this story now, I was sharing with those who wanted to listen, but how could I take that which I experienced into simplicity, to share it in an artful and skillful way, so that those who I engage with can receive their own, just like a tidbit of love, just like seeing sand art. And I'm saying this calmly now, but after 6-8 months of contemplation and meditation with Christopher, every morning, communing, adjusting, dialing in, asking questions, he came back to me in a series of dreams and invited me to be a shooting star with him. And as I went up into the sky, I receded in kind of a, I don't know. I don't want to embarrass you. Should I really? And he came in and said, I will stay with you and help clear away the debris so that you will be the light you are here to be. Humanity needs you. You be you. And I have to think we all feel that. We're all here to clear the debris. We're all here to be the light we're here to be. Humanity needs all of us. And so I went on a journey But I got lost. And I got feisty. And I know there was a morning where I just said, you gave me this gift. We're clearly in cahoots here. You better tell me what I'm here to become so that I can serve. I'm ready. I'll take it on. But I need clarity and make it simple. Because, I'm this artist person. And he guided me through that intuitive place to pick up my phone. There's this wonderful organization called Helping Parents Heal. And I picked up their YouTube, and the next woman that came on to guide others. What a presence, what a strength. Fully committed to the person she was with. And I looked at the show notes. Who's she? A hypnotherapist. I didn't even know it existed. That night I went on a walk with a friend and I said, what do you know about hypnotherapy? Oh, I have a friend who has a very successful practice in Northern California. Go on his website. See where he studied. I went on the website. Found it's a Hypnotherapy Institute in Marin County. They were offering a 1-month intensive. I signed up. I moved there for a month to become certified. Because what better way to serve than to guide people into their own deep, relaxed state of receptivity, to ask a burning question, get feisty, and then create spaciousness to receive. And so now I am a certified hypnotherapist, guiding clients both over Zoom and at the Aton Center in Elfin Forest. It's a residential rehab center. And what a gift to witness. And I am humbled and in awe at how much love is right here and accessible. And I do want to make the statement that it's one thing to receive, but here I'm coming up on 4 years. Integration is a thing. It's a responsibility. It's unraveling. And all your crap comes up. But as I love to say, it's not crap. It's compost. And there are seeds in you that are so eager to germinate. And so I thought, as a gift to all those who are listening and watching, that I would conduct a mini hypno session with you, Gregory. And if they're in a safe space and want to participate, or come back to the recording and participate. But it would be an honor, because for me it is about sharing. And would you like to do this together?
Yes, please.
Okay. So wherever you are, just find yourself in a comfortable position. And I invite you to support your nervous system by choosing one hand and placing it on your belly and the other on your heart. And we're going to begin by feeling the seat beneath you, your feet on the ground. And I invite you to take a long, deep breath, sending it all the way down to your belly. Feel your hand lift up under your belly. And exhale slowly. Another inhalation, and this time at the fullness of your belly, hold it, hold it. And a long, slow exhalation. And at that full exhalation point, pause. Regain momentum and inhale, filling your belly, giving your mind something to do. Oh, it's such a good mind. Like a dog, it wants a job. And now that hand on your heart, give it a little pat, a little rub. Because as you do, you are releasing a natural chemical in your own body that says, we are safe. I am connected. I am cared for. And as you slow your breathing down, you're breathing like a very young child, back into the innocence. This alone is a skill, a tool that you can use at any time in your life. Going to sleep, awakening in the middle of the night, before an important call, just to tend to and love yourself at any moment during the day. And now I'd like you to look into the inside of your eyelids, inviting you first to close your eyes, and then looking into the inside, the back of your eyelids, like you would a movie screen, waiting for the movie to start. No responsibilities. It's all been prepared to come to you. Relax back. Relax back into that seat, waiting for what's going to appear on the inside of your eyelids. And now I invite you to call in a color that brings you a sense of peace. And it begins to swirl ever so gently under your eyelids. And you can tell it's coming from a source of infinite abundance. There's an eagerness, a playfulness. It knows you. Invite it into your eyes. Create capacity to receive. It very quickly soothes your eyes, your temples, and it wants to go down into your jaw. Open and relax your jaw now. Feel this energy inside your jaw, relaxing, relaxing, easing. And that eager fullness now goes back up past your temples to your forehead. A slow circular motion right in the center of your eyebrows. Gently opening, relaxing, creating receptivity. And now moving to the top of your head. Another swirling, opening. Inhale, inhale a freshness. Inhale a presence, one that knows you so intimately. Add an aroma, an iridescence. And now moving into your heart, your childlike innocence. Consider a question. Reduce it down to simplicity. A question that is burning in your heart. And if no question arises, the invitation to ask, what do I need to know? And now out loud with a bit of feist. make that question. Articulate it out loud while you inhale the presence of that warmth into your heart, through the top of your head, through the brow. Inhale that presence and hold and wait and receive. Trusting whatever has arrived, an articulation, a feeling, an emotion. It is what that seed in you is asking for to germinate. It is life force, energy, loving, the authentic wholeness, the perfection and the beauty of you now. Bringing your attention back to that hand on your heart, the hand on your belly. Relaxing any tension that you may have been holding on to in your body. As you come back into your physicality, take note. What did you hear? What did you feel? What did you sense? What did you see? Allow this to be the sustenance and the nutrients for the compost that wants to be set free, that wants to be converted into the nutrients so that the light can shine through you authentically. Gently and slowly wiggle your fingers and toes. And the invitation is to reach for something to document. Just a quick note to let your mind know this wasn't just a dream. This was the real. And it comes from a source of infinite supply. Ready, eager for you to get feisty and to bring it into and through your life.
I didn't want that to end. Wow.
Would you like to share?
Yes. I didn't want that to end on many reasons, one of which your voice is so soothing. I feel like you were made for this. So thank you for that gift. Thank you for leading myself and everyone listening through that. A couple things came up for me, which is funny. I'm smiling because I felt like it was first in the mind. I was in my head and I was trying to get feisty and I was trying to ask, what do I need to know? I love that question because in so many of these visualization, inner knowing exercises, sometimes the question doesn't come. And your invitation to ask, I don't know what's showing up, but what do I need to know, was really powerful. And it was when I stopped trying to get the answer and I just let go a little bit that I had this familiar feeling, which I'm getting more acquainted with by the day. My soul, just so playful, so fun. And he or she, I think it's a he, said, play, fun, and specifically self-love and self-care. When I was rubbing my heart, I realized that how often do you do that to yourself? You do that to your significant other, you do that to a child, you give your mom a hug, rub her back, but you don't do that to yourself very often, and that was a really special moment. So for me, I'm taking away fun and love.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing so authentically and leading with what that mind, it loves taking charge.
Mind loves to take charge. And the other thing that popped up before I was releasing the mind was that so much of today has been talking about sharing and how your next chapter feels like it could be summed up or described as sharing. And your name is Sharon.
Oh. I have been teased that I share on and on and on. We probably went over time.
It might be one of those situations where what other people have labeled as too much in the past is your true gift waiting to come out. So thank you. Thank you times a million. Thank you for being here. I'm so grateful that our paths crossed. I've been telling people that you are my spiritual spirit animal.
Aww.
And I love the way you do life. I love the feist. I love the play. Thank you for taking the time to come on and share these gifts with us.
Thank you for your breadth and width of receptivity and capacity and eagerness to follow along. I mean, it's just heartwarming to know that you exist and that you provided this vehicle to share it with so many. I mean, I can't do this without you, Gregory. It's the synergy. That's what we're being asked to be. The word synarchy is this beautiful way of creating a way of being together. Thank you. Thank you.
And thank you everyone for tuning in with us today. As always, we love you guys. And as we sign off here, Sharon, can you show that Chris was with us this whole time?
Yeah, I'm going to have to reach.
Just move the mic.
Well, Christopher and I have a special offer.
Please.
We would like to extend.
Please tell us about
You're
that.
You're still in trance.
I'm still in trance. Please tell us about that. And please tell everyone listening, where can they go to learn more about you, about this offer? Please tell us about it.
Well, Christopher graduated from the Fire Academy in the class of 55. And so fives mean a lot to me and my family. And so today, I and Christopher, I would not be doing this without him, are offering a $55 gift off of a hypnotherapy session, and your first hypnotherapy session with me, which can be conducted over Zoom with powerful results. And I also am reaching out to the fire family and paramedic family that I will be here to serve them. But for all your listeners who wish to experience a full, in-depth hypnotherapy session, please come onto my website at SharonBelknapDesign.com. And that's BELKNAP, but the K is silent. And there'll be contact information in the show notes. You guys are good at that.
Yes.
Reach out to me and we'll set up a session for you. And let this be the beginning of a beautiful, beautiful journey. And one thing I always love to say to my clients when they come out of trance is, welcome home. Welcome home to the truth of who you are. Welcome home to the truth of what loves you so